Welcome everybody to McKinney Public Library's Books About Books panel. My name is Jenna Norris and I'm a librarian here, and this is Sally Apple that you also see, who's running the chat and handling tech for us tonight, thank goodness. So tonight we are going to be talking about stories that are by, for, and about book lovers, and to do that we have assembled a team of experts on telling bookish stories. So we've got Ashley Poston, or Ash for tonight. We've got Ashley Schumacher, and we have Amanda Sellet. So they're all hanging out with us virtually, and I'm going to let you guys actually introduce yourselves. And the author that I want to start with, so everyone can introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your new book, or newest book rather. But the author that I want to start with is someone whose newest release isn't strictly a book about books, but she has written so many bookish books and books about fandoms, I think you know who you are, that we wanted her to hang out with us tonight. So Ash Poston, take it away.
Hi, my name is Ashley Poston, and my newest release is Among the Beasts and Briars. But, you know, I do have a book about books, and it's called Bookish and the Beast, which also came out last year within the same time frame as Among the Beasts and Briars. Ask me if I have slept, and the answer will be no. But today we are going to be celebrating two other amazing books by Amanda Sellet and Ashley Schumacher. I did it again.
I could say Poston posted forever. I'm so excited. It's great.
Listen, there's an ad like Shoemaker Homes that plays all the time on like local stations, and so it's just drilled into my head.
Elves to be with you, the elves and the shoemaker. I think that would be really good.
Yeah.
Right. It's fine. I'll answer to whatever.
Anyway, everyone should read it. It's called Amelia Unabridged, and it's amazing.
Also, it's got a pretty blurb on the back from.
It does, from Aaron Hahn, which I love. But yeah, so that's me. Hi guys.
So let's break up our Ashleys a little bit and go to Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Sellet. I think somewhere up here, I want to point to this book, but no, this one is mine. I'm the Lavender book, by the book, a novel of pros and cons. And yeah, it's about a girl who sees the world through prose-colored glasses, as I like to say as often as possible. And got to get all the mileage out of that pun, you know, while I still can. And
the verbiage is real good.
Thank you.
I'd run with that so hard.
And yeah, so it's my rom-com meets masterpiece theater, basically, as I like to say. And yeah, I'm so happy that everything is thawed enough that we can be here together tonight, so close to the actual real life launch time of Ashley Schumacher's review.
Thank you, Amanda Sellet. I appreciate that.
Flex. Okay, over to Ashley.
Nice. This is a great segue. Yeah, I'm Ashley Schumacher, gestures at wall of Amelia Unabridged. I mean, what else am I supposed to do with author copies? It's fine. It's great. If I'd had foresight, I would have
collage your entire bookshelf with it.
Like Amanda did what I did day one and has like everybody's books up there, which is great. And I'm just like, look at my author copies. What do I do with them? I jokingly, not jokingly, said the rest are outside of the last remnants of my snow fort. But yeah, I wrote Amelia Unabridged. It just came out, so I'm like still dreadfully new at events. So blame all the technology on me. It's probably my fault somehow because it hates me.
And it's all your fault, Ashley.
It is. Ashley Poston. It is my fault.
So in case you guys in the audience can't tell, one of the really great things about this author panel tonight is that all of the authors here are actually fans of each other, which is really fun and has made for some really cool small world book community incidents. So to get started on some bookish questions, since we all know who we're dealing with now, the first thing that I wanted to ask you guys, and I'm going to start with, let's say, Ashley Schumacher, since you finished. I want to know if you guys have always been bookish people. Like, were you readers growing up, or is this a new development for you?
I just learned to read last week. No. Pretty close to it though. I say I've always been a reader, but I was like in the remedial reading from like kindergarten through second grade. God bless my mother's soul for like trying so hard. she's still alive. That makes it sound like she's not here. But bless her soul for how much she's put into my reading efforts. So yeah,
it's like
once
that
I got
like skit where it's like, quit telling everyone I'm dead.
Mom's alive, it's fine. But yeah, she thankfully my parents were not particularly bookish, but they took me to the McKinney Library, weirdly. So this is like totally full circle because my tiny Texas town didn't have one. Like we went to the McKinney Library all the time once I figured out what words were. So yeah, it's been reading, and I go way back, just not like way back before second grade, way back. That was remedial classes.
What about you, Amanda?
Yeah, total nerd to the core. Nerd from, way back when, like the kind of bookish that friends with the librarians. My mom actually became a librarian much later in life. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. So when my youngest brother went to kindergarten, she went back and got her library science degree and became a librarian. But she was an English major from way back when, and, was always passing books on to me. And I was the kind of kid who had to like move myself when my arm would cramp. And be like, gosh, what position have I not spent 6 hours in today that I can keep reading in?
Tough choice.
I know. It was like, I'm amazed, like they didn't have to roll me over in case of bed sores or something. Like they just come in, somebody turn her over, But yeah, that's the kind of reader I was. And not just crumpet books, as I like to call the Brit Lit that my main character reads, definitely more wide ranging.
I love crumpet lit. I've never heard that. Now that I'm already obsessed
use that
with
from
it.
now on. Yeah.
Right. I'm obsessed with crumpet
It's like,
lit.
oh, we're watching a crumpet movie. I'm like, indeed.
It's like, indubitably, while sipping tea.
Like Laura Letty needs to come out and tell us what we're about to read next.
What about you, Ash?
I was always that's a lie. I was not always a really big reader. I'm a very slow reader. And so I got into reading through graphic novels and manga. And I still am a really, really big cheerleader of like graphic novels and manga. I just really like anime and manga a lot. And so I like got into reading through like that gateway, and I got into writing through fanfic. So it's fine, full circle. It's okay. I grew up in the time of like media fire fanfics and the wild west of fanfic.net before before everything happened. And so yeah, imagine like 10-year-old me like starry-eyed going, what's a lemon?
Oh no.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so obviously books and fan fictions and other forms of fandom have had an impression on you guys, enough so that you decided to write books about just the book community and the world of fandoms. So what is it about the book community and bookish locations do you think that make the perfect backdrop for a story? Anyone can take it, run with it.
We're starting off at a slow jog.
That's where I max out, so I hope we don't get going too much faster than that.
I know, just like slow and steady wins the race. For me, I just really like how. So I know for me, when I first wrote Geekarella, it was about like a TV series and like sci-fi. But like I find it also very indicative of like the book community as well, whereas like you think you're alone on this island of loneliness, right? And you're like, oh, no one else likes what I like, it's me, like, because like reading is a very like solo thing, and so it's like being a fan of something. But then especially online and the book community, like Book Talk and like like Bookstagram and like Book Tumblr, it's just you start meeting people who are like mirrors to yourself, and you're like, oh, you like that too? Come to my island. Let's like have a party. and for me, that's what like writing about bookish people and like the book community is like, or it's like, oh, you like what I like. Let's have discussions about this. Let's talk about it. Let's just fangirl about this for a while. Where like it's just, I really like the sense of not being alone.
Anyone else?
Yeah. No, it's like, especially with the pandemic, I know we all read our books pre-pandemic, but that sense of community has always bled online. I mean, it's always, it was previously also in real life at events and festivals and cons, but it's always had a really thriving internet life. And I think obviously this last year that's become even more important. So I know it was a popular question at the beginning when we were all starry-eyed and thought the pandemic would be over in a month, but on Twitter it was like, what are your characters doing during the pandemic? And I'm sure all three of us had variations of, they're all reading. Like, what do you think they're doing? Like, they're living their best reading lives and baking bread, before they realized the pandemic wasn't going to be a 2-week thing. But no, I think it makes such a compelling backdrop, because if somebody's reading your book, chances are high they're like readers with a capital R. Hopefully they're not like being forced by their mom as punishment of like, go sit in the corner and read this book. Hopefully they're enjoying it, and hopefully they can find something. Ash, why are you making that face? Have people been punished with your books and you know about it?
I was just thinking, it would be really fun to have like someone being punished by like here, read Geekarella, you have to. Like, that's just so funny to me.
My parents couldn't punish me by sending me to my room because I would go and read. So they'd say, go to your room and you can't read. Like, they'd be like, go to your room. And I'd be like, cool. Like, can I bring a snack? They're like, no,
like, awesome. Some alone time.
Yeah, right? Like, just go hang out with what I was going to do anyway.
I'm going to go read some, Percy Jackson.
Right? Amanda,
as an adult.
Right. Because we hadn't done that yet. And so it's fine. We're catching up. Amanda, you probably have more smart things to say, especially because you deal with crumpet lit. I love it so much. I'm just going to say crumpet lit as much as I can.
Coin it.
Yeah, I think I was kind of throwing in all the stuff I love. I was like, what are the things I like? I was like, oh, I like books with a big family, and I like books where they talk about food. There's always going to be like baked goods or cheese in any book probably that I write. And so I was like, and then also I think there's the laziness factor, and there's like, right, what do I know really well that I can just, steal from my own life? And it would be somebody who sinks so deeply into books that, it starts to blur the line between what is your life and then what are you reading about,
Less research too.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Cutting corners wherever possible.
Exactly.
Also easy with character motivations and stuff to iron those out. It's easier, I feel like, when you have creative-ish or readerly main characters, to give them really clear motivations on what they want. Yeah, I'm all about cutting corners. I'm all about like any ready-made plot, because I'm really bad at plot, y'all. Really bad.
And to be able to like say to like the copywriter who's like, this isn't possible. It's like, no, I have done that. It is possible. We're steady.
And have like a digression.
Yeah.
Since these are such familiar settings and characters, so were there things that were more challenging? Like, was it more intimidating to write about a world and a community that you're so familiar with? Like, was there pressure there to get it right?
I can say on this one, a hard one for me was trying to balance writing about old books that are going to be written in these long, complicated sentences, with 27 clauses and really long words and antiquated vocabulary and things like that. And then trying to figure out like, okay, how does that translate for a teenage audience today? Because it's the kind of thing where if you haven't read any books like that, then the language can be off-putting, and so trying to make it so that you didn't have to know the specific references, like you didn't have to have read like Wilkie Collins early detective novels to be able to enjoy this book. You could just sort of get a feel for it, and to generalize it and make it accessible but still kind of true to the vibe of it, And I always tell people, and they're like, I just don't think that character Mary is very realistic. Like, nobody would really talk like that. And I remember, because I have a 14-year-old daughter who is probably listening, on the other side of this bookshelf in her bedroom, and
glass pressed against the
right,
book.
exactly. What are you saying about me this time? Is that going to be on Twitter?
Better not be sharing any embarrassing stories.
Exactly. Wait till you go to high school. This is going to be amazing. But she was in kindergarten, so she had like just learned to read and write. And so I was writing a thank you letter to her teacher at the end of the year, and I was like, do you want to add anything? And so I gave it to her, and like in her serial killer scrawl, she can like barely hold the pencil, she wrote, how I wish I could reward you more richly. And I was like, what the? And that's
Meanwhile, Ashley was
when
in
you give
review.
somebody the audiobook of The Secret Garden, when they're like 3 years old and they listen to it over and over and over again. I'm like, oh, you are an uppity little,
Puppet.
6-year-old. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Crumpet eating. Yeah. Whatever.
Give her some tea and crumpets and
I know. Exactly.
That's the best. I love this story. I hope she's listening on the other side of I hope your bookshelf is one of those that has a secret door that opens and she comes out and reveals herself.
She can pop out like the Kool-Aid man and be like, that's not what I said.
What about
am
either
like
Ashley? Either Ashley. What do you guys think about, like, were there anything challenging for you guys writing for or about the book community?
I guess I'll go.
Let's go. Do it.
We're just gonna stare off until one of us goes. So I guess for the Once Upon a Con series, it was more about trying to get the convention and the convention feel right. So instead, I'm going to talk about trying to get like the feel of a fairy tale book right for Among the Beasts and Briars, because that was one, more recent, two, why I'm here, and three, because I love Among the Beasts and Briars. But yeah, I read a lot of translated fairy tales, because most fairy tales have been translated from their original language. And so I wanted to try and like capture that kind of like not very distant, but kind of like magical feel to it, where everything is like not where everything is like feels a little separated from the story itself. Even though it was in first person, I wanted it to have this like whimsiness to it, because that's what I really love about fairy tales, and I wanted Among the Beasts and Briars to kind of encompass that sort of fairy tale feel. And so that was really hard to get right, because I had never done that before. I had done sci-fi and contemporary geek, fanfic, basically, of a Star Trek convention. So so that was really hard to get right, and it went through like 9 different drafts, and I still don't know if I completely nailed it, but gosh darn it, I tried.
I think you did nail it. Yeah, it's hard to write. It's hard to write when there's any kind of precedence and you're trying to play to that and also like diverge somehow. So you're not saying, especially I imagine with fairy tales, but even with just bookish characters in general, there's so many of them. That goes so far back. It's interesting trying to be like contribute to the conversation instead of just yelling over it, which sometimes feels like the same thing. But I know with Amelia, what was hard was the book within the book was trying to make that both wildly unrealistic in that it was so popular, and trying to stress how popular this fictional book that I made up within my fictional book was for the world, and doing that justice while also kind of like making it feel familiar. And so I know like the way I did that was with excerpts, and trying to make it sound like something that would exist. There's a deleted scene somewhere that I feel like Ash in particular with her fan fiction would appreciate, in which it was discussed what kind of like Orman fan fiction there was in existence.
And you didn't think to, like, I don't know, in our year-long friendship, to send it to me?
I'm sorry. I will try and go into like I will try and dig in my poor computer to find it, but
okay, Schumacher.
Okay, fine. Yeah, maybe I was too busy making shoes.
Like, what's the level of meta above meta? I don't even know.
It was already too meta, and that's why I got
meta squared.
It was too meta, and so, but yeah, it's hard to do such a sprawling community that takes so many forms too, because like as much as it's an online fixture for us, like it's not always an online fixture for people. Like lots of people are in book clubs who don't know how to use technology, and they're just as much a part of the book community. So it's weird trying to. I think you just have to kind of camp out in your little slice and what your character in particular is participating in, and build the world around that, and not try to think too hard about all the people that don't partake in the same way as your character.
They'll find you on Goodreads. It's fine.
Oh my God, they'll find you and they'll tell you in great detail why you excluded them from your narrative. I don't read my Goodreads. It's fine.
So in addition to all the challenges of writing, for a very opinionated and passionate community, you guys added another level of challenge by writing romance into your bookish stories. So I want to talk a little bit about, do you think bookish locations are inherently romantic, or did you have to do some work to insert the romance into your stories?
I mean,
God.
I think the way we feel about like readers and reading, especially like people in the book community, it is a very romantic thing. Because like whenever you see someone reading a book on TV, it's always like in a romantic sense. I mean, it's always it's always romanticized in some way. Maybe it's not a book about romance, but the reading of it itself is romanticized. So yeah, I think that was the easy part, because like books in and of themselves are like a kind of romance. It's like it's the book romancing the reader. So
I think it's really vulnerable. Yeah, it's vulnerable to share what you're reading, or like even, and I have characters that read to each other, which to me is like, I don't I wrote that part under a blanket, I'll have you know. My awkward self was like, and under the blanket we go. It's not even like steamy or anything. There's just like a lot of feelings and romantic feelings. It was like, and the blanket comes out. But yeah, I think it's just a vulnerable thing, and I think a lot of, especially YA romance, is about vulnerability. So that's why I went under the blanket, because I thought it was worth it. I think books are romantic.
I think like even if a book is not a romance, I'm like such a truffle hunting pig for romance, I'm just like, I'll just totally sniff that out and I'll be like, aha, that's what that's about,
it's like my fanfic feelers are tingling.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, oh, I know. Yeah, this is definitely a romance. Like when I was a little kid, I used to ask my mom to tell me bedtime stories about the Super Friends, but just to make romantic parts, Superman and Wonder Woman, because I felt like there wasn't quite enough, but I sensed the potential for it there, in the cartoon.
It was
Oh my
like
gosh,
it was like the Princess
people.
Bride, but with
That's what I was
Superman.
thinking. Yes, the opposite. She wanted the kissing book.
Yeah. I was like, what if they kissed? Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah.
Oh my god.
I was always so bad at that little kid in the movie form of Princess Bride when he was like, "Are they kissing again?" I'm like, "Yes, hush."
Right? I'm like,
Don't ruin
under my blanket.
and that's a
It's
guy for
fine.
you.
He needs to go to the library and pick himself up a girl who reads. Then he'll be interested. It's fine.
So I know we have
Pick somebody
a lot
up
of
who
people.
reads, dude.
So I know we have a lot of people listening and who are probably going to watch this later on, who are writers or who want to be authors in the audience. So if anyone is looking to write their own bookish book, what kind of advice do you guys have for them?
I'm the newbie. I'm hushing. This is me hushing.
Oh no, if we're going by publishing seniority, no.
Just don't do it by real world age, because then I would lose and that would be sad.
Oh. Fine, I'll go.
I lose in all the ways. Here.
I would just say, if you're writing a bookish book, just finish it. It's I say this all the time for anything, but the hardest thing to do is to finish a book. And the last thing you do as like a reader is, when you're bored with the book, you don't want to finish it unless like you're one of those like gotta get through it, which that's me. I'm always like I am like a hate reader at the end if I don't like something. But there will come a time in like your draft where you're going to hate what you're working on. You're going to absolutely hate it. You're going to think it's the worst thing in the world, and you're going to have to finish it, because if you don't finish it, you can't make it better. You can't just like tap out and be like, nope, I'm good. I'm done. Like you can't just put it away and then pick up something else. You have to like train your brain to shut off that like critiquing part of you and just keep going, keep moving forward, as the Robinsons say.
Oh my gosh. As Walt Disney via the Robinsons said, it's fine. I've never felt more called out than when I was in Disney World and I had just signed with my agent back when we could go do things like go to Disney World, and they were like doing reconstruction on part of Fantasyland, and they had all these Walt Disney World quotes on the outside, and one of them was something like, you can't accomplish anything without a deadline, or you have to work towards your deadline or something. And I was like, I feel called out. This is rude. But yeah, hard agree on just finishing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think related to that, like, because that is so true, and one of the things that makes it hard and that, you know, puts you in the pit of despair is when you are comparing the books that you love, because presumably you're writing a bookish book because you're a book lover, and you think, oh my gosh, look at all these amazing books, and then, oh wow, look at my draft. I mean, it is just like a steaming, you know, dung heap. Why should I keep writing this, you know? But if you hold on to the knowledge that at some point those wonderful completed books, you know, they started off in some really rough, awkward state, and that maybe someday you can get your book, you know, to a slightly less like malodorous state. Hashtag goals. So
That's all we can aspire to.
Yeah, like just your first draft's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad.
Get good critique partners. This is the moral of the story.
oh,
And then,
who won't like put your feelings above like the critique that needs to be done. Like a good critique partner will like balance your feelings with the critique. And like the critique is always very important, and you should like separate your feelings of the story from the critique, because it's not saying you're a bad writer. It's just saying this book is just a steaming pile of just something you don't want to step in.
but we believe you can fix it is
Yes.
the thing. Like I think that's the key, is like having critique partners who believe in you more than you do, so that you can be like, in the pit of despair, this is awful and it's trash and I'm taking it out where it belongs, into the trash. And they're like, okay, well, yes, take these like middle 60 pages to the trash where they live, but the rest of it is good. But those are the good CPs.
Yeah.
The compliment sandwich.
Basically. And like also always like remember that like a CP wouldn't like write something like critiquing your work if they did not think you could fix it. Like they took the time out of their life to like write this down. Like they believe you can do the work.
So we do also have quite a lot of questions coming from the audience tonight, so I want to make sure that we have time to get to all of those. So the first question from the audience is, what is the worst writing advice you've ever received?
Write every day, because then I failed like day 2, and I was like, well, I guess I'm not a writer. You don't have to write every day. It's fine. It'll still be there. Annoyingly, it'll still be there when you come back to your laptop. Ash and Amanda are like seasoned and combing through all of the terrible advice they've heard.
I'm thinking of like really early on when I was first trying to write, and I was living in a really small town in a different state, and the only writing group I could find, like there was the elite writing group, and there was the less elite writing group, and the elite writing group was like, no, sorry, we're full up. So I had to go to the less elite writing group, and it was all there was a focus on memoir writing for a certain age demographic. And so the whole time, the only critique I got for the piece I brought in was like, I don't think squelch is a word. And I was like, well, I feel like we could settle this, and then maybe we could talk about something else. And they're like, no, it's not a word. And I was like, no, but okay.
It definitely is a word. I have seen it in fanfic.
I feel validated. Sometimes I still have those moments where I'm like, but is it a word? Like, no, it is a word. Okay.
No, it is 100%. It has to be a word, because like there's no other word for that word.
Right. So yeah,
in certain contexts.
I'm hearing the word and the sound squelch in my brain on repeat right now. It's real.
Yeah.
It's evocative, if nothing else.
It's a thing. It's like moist. It's a word.
Oh,
I wish it wasn't a word, but in fact.
I have a similar thing. So when I was in college, I went for creative writing. Well, it was English with a concentration in creative writing. And it was like my week to turn in a short story to have the class critique it. Yeah, everyone decided to just not come that day because they had one day they could take off from the class and not be counted against. And it was that one day because I wrote YA, and like. So the one critique that I did get was from my professor, and his critique was like, perhaps you should write something geared for a more older audience. And I was like, cool.
That's helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I was
Glad
like,
you didn't listen.
I was like 10, no, 12 years
It was-
later, I have 8 novels under my belt and he has 0. So
I was gonna say, would it be passive aggressive if every time you had a new book come out, you just sent it to the university? Is he still? Can we en masse send him your book? Would that be
I
wrong?
sat next to him at like an event 3 years ago when he like self-published something, which like self-publishing is completely valid, but his was not. It was
I
it
would
was a
just
lot.
slowly start, surely the author copies you carry around with you everywhere, just taking them out and stacking them because I am vindictive.
It was at a Barnes and Noble event, and like I was just like sitting beside him, and he was like, "Oh, so you're published. Who are you published through?" And like he did not remember me whatsoever. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I was in your class back when. Remember, I wrote that zombie in a freezer truck short story that you told me."
I feel
we
like
need
for
to see
every
that.
yeah, every like warm, fuzzy, Dead Poets Society-esque like teacher relationships, and there's these what are you doing? Like write something different. Why aren't you writing memoir?
Yeah. So
we've got
yeah,
another.
don't listen to people who you should not respect.
Good advice for life.
Yeah.
So we have a question specifically for Amanda. Someone wants to know, how do you get in the head of a teenager for romance writing?
I mean, now like I can totally steal from my daughter, but back then she was a little bit young. So yeah, one thing that I did was pull out some of my yearbooks from middle school. Whew, that was wild. I was like, well, man, times have changed. I mean, hair fashions have changed, but what an awkward time. Yeah, so I just had to think back to when everything was a first and everything was new. And I mean, I think to some extent, like the beginning of a romance is always has that newness and that tingliness and that, oh my gosh, everything is magnified a billion times. It's so significant, like the first eye contact, the first, touch, all of that stuff. So yeah, just getting back there and then making it even more awkward because of the teenage factor.
So we have a question for both Ashleys as well. So to the Ashley Collective, what is your favorite thing about conventions? Any conventions?
That we could go to them. And they
Oh, you stole
Ouch.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say the free food in the green rooms, but that's not a thing for like writers going to conventions because we don't get to go to the green room because we're not cool enough. I don't know. I would definitely say I really love just the aspect of just so much fandom in one place. For festivals and for conventions, there's just something really magical about being in a panel room where where your favorite actors and actresses are and they're talking about like the newest season. Or I remember when I was a huge Voltron fan a few years ago, and so I got to be in the room when they like announced that like Shiro had a boyfriend, and so I was like, first rep, and then this was like right before like Shira, and so like the room went wild. And I love stuff like that where it's like just this like collective just freak out, and I miss it so much. It feels a lot like midnight movie premieres and book premieres. There's just this energy there that you don't really get anywhere else.
Yeah, the community aspect is like everybody being there for the same thing and getting to take joy in it and know that you don't have to convince the person next to you to geek out because they're just as geeky as you are.
Maybe that's like sport for sporty people. I'm just guessing. I'm just like my imagination.
I have said a bajillion times that like, and while we're geeking out and talking about conventions, like I think the Marvel, like the final Avengers movie was my sport. Like that's the closest I've gotten truly to understanding sports humans, because when there were some obviously spoilery, won't say critical things that happened, and the whole audience cheered. I'm like, oh my God, I get sports. Like, I just don't know the narrative behind all these people with their costumes and their various things they throw or kick through the air. But like, if this is what it feels like, I understand. Yeah, right. I need everybody's backstory, heartwarming, because I love sports movies. Like, just tell me your sports movie story, and then I will watch you throw the ball, and I will care deeply about your ball.
I think the only sports movie story that I've ever seen was High School Musical.
Oh my God, Ash, no, Ash.
Get your head in the game. Get your head in the game.
No. If you think High School Musical is a sports movie,
what? It is.
So,
He's a basketball player.
Oh my God. I totally do that to my husband though. When he does watch actual sports, I'm like, would you say those two guys are friends? Like, they've been friends a long time? Or like, I mean, what about the coach? Is he a nice guy? Or like, what's going on there?
Like, I don't know if it's a recent thing, but I saw it on TikTok because I'm young and hip. But
I was like, oh no, he definitely smacked his butt. They are definitely friends.
No, they started miking them. They started miking the players, and it's my new favorite thing. Yes, they'll mic certain players, and they'll be like chatting in between plays with their like buddies. It's the best thing, and then they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we're being recorded, dude. We're being recorded." I'm like, I could get behind this all day. I watch sports if I could hear the like running narrative of like what they're thinking and doing.
Have you seen the movie? I don't know how. Like, I just imagine that as the Ving Rhames character was saying all of a sudden, like, "You think I look good in a sweater vest?" You know, like that's the level of dialogue I would be anticipating from the football players.
Or like complaining about like, I don't know, cup sweat or
sports.
something. I'm getting really gross.
No, I totally like that you guys are already shipping sports players and making your own stories there, because another one of our questions is, what is your favorite ship? So if it's a sports player, then roll with it. Or if it's someone else in the world, that works too.
Like favorite ship of all time?
All time. Or just whatever pops into your head now that the spotlight is on you.
I really like that ship. She's such a chunky girl.
Stop it. Stop.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wrong ship. You mean like relationship?
Stop. Which half of the Titanic is your favorite though? I shipped the
Titanic and the iceberg, okay?
It was a doomed love. Misunderstood.
Does anyone have actual characters that they ship?
Okay, so as the old who grew up with the original Star Wars trilogy, I shipped obviously Princess Leia and Han Solo so hard that I had a real problem with Karen Allen in the Indiana Jones movies because I felt like she was a homewrecker. So it was just very disturbing for me. I was like, what is he doing? That's not right.
Okay, but like I'm the exact opposite. I love that ship, and I hated the Han like Leia ship because of it.
Things are being thrown down. We've reached the throwdown portion.
I was waiting to hear something about Luke and Leia, and then I was gonna be like, well, that is complicated. All right.
Listen, that is complicated.
Very neat.
I think, okay, can I bring it to the modern Star Wars, the new Star Wars?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Raylo.
I know where you're going.
Raylo and I are like, yeah, I feel like if it's like bad boy and somewhat for some reason always brown hair, like Draco and Hermione, why do we like all the bad boys who date brown-haired girls other than like specifically they're likely to have brown hair? I'm sure that was a choice that everybody made. But
everyone in the creative universe was like, so we need an average kind of girl who maybe is smart, maybe she has some magical qualities, brown hair for you. And it's like, all right, well, you just looped in like a large portion of the population. Congrats.
So I'm only going to do 2 more questions because we are running a little bit low. Oh, go for it. Go for it. Take it.
Oh my gosh. You finally picked one?
No, mine's like really easy. My favorite ship of all time is Kagome and Inuyasha from Inuyasha.
That's a perfect segue actually to my next question, because we had someone ask you specifically, Among the Beasts and Briars has a strong Inuyasha feel. So did you intend that or was it a complete accident?
It was not an accident. It was 100% like I want to do something that reminds me of Inuyasha without cultural appropriation. So yeah, very, very much Inuyasha-esque. Absolutely.
Excellent. And the last question is for everyone to play. What is your last 5-star read or your favorite thing that you read recently?
Wow, no one go first.
Okay,
Fine.
for real, I just read this. It was
No,
so
no.
beautiful book, and it's so beautifully
hear it.
written. And I would meant to remember like specific lines, but blank brain, camera.
Your $10 advertising fee when we're done, Amanda.
Just like the imagery of the whales in the trees and just like the ocean. Oh, I just
Okay, I'm out of $10. Stop.
No, I'm being serious. Like it's been a year and some change, and I still cannot get that image out of my head. It's so good.
What about you, Ashley? Now you have to say everyone else's books.
Well, I mean, I really like By the Book, and I really like Amelia Unabridged. I mean, they are absolutely 5-star reads, but they aren't the most recent that I've read, sadly.
Yeah, give us a recent one, cheater.
A recent one. Oh, this is going to sound really weird, but there's a romance. Oh, okay. I'm
Not
going to
weirder
do
than the
this.
Titanic ship.
Not the Titanic ship, but this is a little weirder than that. So I like getting my recs from TikTok, especially with manga, because I don't keep up with manga as I used to. I worked at Kodansha for a while, so I was like part of the whole like manga industry for a while. But so I like getting my recs from TikTok, because I'm like, oh, I don't have time to read, so I'm going to get recs from there. And one of the mangas that I came across was this manga called like Sweat and Soap, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a woman who sweats a lot, and she works at like a soap fragrance business, and like the guy who makes her favorite fragrances falls in love with her and the way she smells. It's just so weird.
I want a whole podcast of you
For
just
everyone.
explaining this to people.
But also you have to just like take it with a grain of salt, because it is so cute and so wholesome. And I'm just like, she has this insecurity about herself, and it's the exact thing that this guy just loves about her. And it's like, it's so empowering and it's so quirky, and I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm here for it. This is wholesome and like really funny and weird, so why not? So
I don't think we can judge anyone's pandemic reads.
no,
We can't.
no. So thanks, TikTok. I'm not sure if I like it yet, but it's very interesting.
A teen romance, literally.
Literally.
Stop. I feel like soap shops are going to be the new coffee shop AU. Like, you're just going to go work to have a meet cute with soap.
I mean, yeah. It's like she talks about bath bombs and like fragrances, and like he's like, oh, this one was inspired by you, and I'm like, that is like, why is that romantic? I don't know, but it is. The panorama has done things to us. We can never repair it.
Can I plug one real quick?
Do
I
it.
want to plug. I didn't read it recently because she's my CP, but I'm just so stupid proud. Can I find the cover real quick? I can do this. I need to keep it handy because I can never. It was called something else before it was given its final title after the ink dries. But y'all, she just revealed the illustrations, and I'm low-key obsessed with them. It's got like graphic novel interstitials, and it's like my favorite thing. I'm trying to find one with the bat. But it's the coolest thing ever, and it's like definitely a 5-star. Not just biased. I am not just biased. Just legit a great. Oh, Ash is now. Ash, have I not? Do I need to send this? Ash is making faces. I'll send it to you. It is most excellent, and the bat, you'll also appreciate this. Amanda, are you an Anastasia fan? Like the animated? Okay, the bat is totally Bartok. Like it's Sparky, but it's Bartok. It's great.
When does that one come out?
When does this one come out? It comes out. Cassie, I know you're here. Cassie in the chat. When does your book come out? I know it's in the summer. Cassie.
Look on the
Cassie's like,
spine. Look on the
half listening.
spine.
Why? Ash knows things. It is really good. I'm a really good salesperson. Cassie, I owe you $10 for messing up your plug there. But no, it's truly, it's like my favorite 5-star read. I'm not just saying it because she's my CP. She's also just brilliant. Also, I just want her to keep me because she has every reason not to. So I'm like, please keep reading my trash and telling me that it's not.
So we have only minutes left to spare. Unfortunately, we're going to have to close it out. So I want to go ahead and thank Ashley Poston, Amanda Sellet, and Ashley Schumacher for hanging out with us tonight. Also a big thank you to all of their publishers, as well as the City of McKinney for letting us do fun author talks like these. So if you guys haven't read By the Book, Amelia Unabridged, or Among the Beasts and Briars, we have hard copies of all of them available at the library, and some of them are even available on our Cloud Library app if you're into ebooks and audiobooks. If you want to keep up with the authors online, where can they find you, Ashley Schumacher?
I am Ash Writes Books everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, ashwritesbooks.com, everywhere. I'm everywhere.
What about you, Amanda?
I'm at Amanda J. Sellet.
Perfect. And our last Ashley?
I am Ash Poston on Twitter and Hey Ash Poston on Insta. And Amanda, one question. Did you talk about your 5-star read?
Yeah, Amelia Unabridged. But I could say more.
That's not fair.
Okay.
Right?
My other one's Soul Swift by Megan Bannon, especially if you want to cry and have deep feelings and deep thoughts.
Oh, that one
Perfect.
is
So
really
you guys have lots of book recommendations now to go and check out, in addition to all of the ones from our authors tonight. If you dig author events, our next author interview is going to be brought to you by our True Crime Book Club, and it's on March 10th with Kate Winkler-Dawson, who is the author of American Sherlock, Murder, Forensics, and the Birth of American CSI. So keep an eye on our Facebook for more author content throughout the year, and again, to see the recording and share the recording of tonight's event. So thank you all for coming. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.